Hi, I'm Eric Lubau, and welcome to Beyond the Belt. This is a conversation with Alex Buch, a black belt out of Wuppertal, Nordrhein-Westfalen, Germany. Alex is a lifelong martial artist, former MMA fighter, philosophy major, and social worker focusing on childhood behavioral therapy. I hope you enjoy our chat. Thank you for being here. What was it like for you to get your black belt?
Well, I got my black belt actually at a time of my life which was quite different because I got divorced and didn't knew how I could keep on going. So I guess it was pretty much more than getting my black belt because I kept going with the sport, and that was a huge thing for me personally.
When you say keep going, did you mean like keep going in doing jujitsu, or did you mean like you were just struggling with life and wondering how would you keep going with life?
I guess both, but not
Okay.
really. But with the sport, it was kind of like I broke up with my ex and we trained together. And so I had to search for new training environments and see how it goes from there. So it was hard to fight through that.
Did it make you feel like the gym wasn't like a safe space for you?
Well, we had our own gym, so I left the gym and started to travel to other cities to train. I kept training with my professor because he had his own gym in a city nearby, and then I went there. So that was good, but as you know, if you have to figure out new ways to train in new environments, it's always hard to keep going and to feel welcome, perhaps. Was struggling with myself at that time, but I always felt safe in the gym.
Was there, I mean, as somebody who's like switched gyms a bunch of times, like I know that there's that difficulty of like walking into a gym and wondering like if it's going to be, if you're going to feel accepted, if the people are going to accept you, especially for you as a black belt switching gyms. Like, did it feel like a problem? Did it feel like, was there something that you're like, hey, I wish everyone would understand this about switching gyms as a black belt or just switching gyms in general?
I always tried not to tell the people I am black belt because I just want to train and I feel like I'm the same kind of person as all the other guys, even white, blue, purple, whatever. I just want to go there and train and find good training partners. Sure, do have an experience level, but on top of that, I'm female and not that strong as much bigger guys, and some have ego problems. If you say I'm a black belt and they saying nice, now I can tap a black belt, and I'm sure you can. You're 120 kilograms. I'm like 70 kilos. You can tap me. Um, so I often think or try to hide the black belt. I like to train nogi, so I don't have to wear the belt. um, and I guess it's hard to change gyms and to get in a new group of people to train with because you don't know them. You don't know, do they flow roll? Do they just like to have fun and get better with each other? Are they more competitive? Are they able to talk about things like that? To say, no, I want to go hard. I'm injured. I want to go easy. And do they think the same about going easy than you do? That could differ a lot,
Yeah.
I guess. So, and because your health, your mental health, and your physical health depends on the new guys in the new gym, it's really hard to switch because you have to trust. You don't know the people, but you have to trust them on so many levels. And personally, I do not like to get to know new people so much. I find it hard. I really need time to make new friends and get to know people. So that's really hard, and it would be easier to change gyms if the people would be more open and talk more about how to roll or whatever. I guess that would be easier to change gyms.
You said you travel and train jujitsu a lot. How does that work for you? Like I'm a person who likes people, and so I go to a new gym and I'm like immediately like shooting the shit with people, seeing how they're doing. And so that makes it easier for people to, want to roll with me or me to want to roll with them. But like how do you deal with that if you don't like people or not that you don't?
I like people, but I guess I'm kind of shy
Yeah.
and I'm not so open. And I think the sport is what makes it easy. I can go there and say, I want to roll with you. That's easier than to start a conversation.
Yeah.
And if it works on the mats, then afterwards you can talk because you get connected on some level. So that makes it easier.
I mean,
I guess I kind of like to challenge myself because I don't like to do stuff like that to get to know people. But I know it's pretty good and important to improve my jiu-jitsu, that I roll with the different people and I like to get to know new countries. So it fits together somehow.
is there anything that you've picked up along the way that's useful for you? Or is it just going in there and being like, hey, do you want to roll? And then building up from there?
What do you mean with what I picked up? Some
Like, is
tips?
it, yeah, just travel tips. I mean, like you're a smaller woman traveling and doing jujitsu, and so you kind of have your like some safety concerns to think about it. I feel like I don't have that. I'm not a smaller woman, so it's hard for me to know what those tips or things might be.
I guess it is best to talk about it, to say I don't want to go hard and to go into the role without ego. So just start with not so much strength and tempo and let the other person tap you 1,000 times. So if you feel like somebody is going with too much pressure or whatever, then just let them do. So I don't know how to say in English, Wind aus den Segeln nehmen.
Like go as the like go as the wind goes into your sails. I guess like go with the wind. Yeah. I that's interesting. I feel like I have a slightly different view of it when I feel someone going a little crazy, and I'm a bigger guy. I'm 100 kilos, and when I feel someone going crazy, I just tap like, and I'm like, hey, I need you to calm down. Rather than letting them do it, I just stop the roll and say, hold on, like I need you to go to be calmer for this to work for me. Is you just like kind of let them go and protect yourself, or do you like stop it?
No, no, I meant what you said. I just let them do and tap and say, okay, you're stronger, you're bigger, you can tap me if they don't get it on themselves.
Yeah.
But normally they realize, okay, she's not doing anything.
Yeah.
So I have to be more, yes, careful.
I feel
But
the same way.
sometimes I just say, stop, I'm out of here. I've got injured so many times. I'm doing this sport so long and I don't need to be injured again. So that's not worth it.
Yeah, I know that feeling. What kind of injuries have you gotten like over the years? Like anything major that's taken you off the mat for a long time?
I've got some disc prolapse, I guess you say in
Yeah, like
English.
herniated discs. Yeah.
Yes, genau. That was, yes, in the lower back and in the neck. So some months off. And the worst injury was an infection in the knee last year.
Like a staph infection?
Streptococcus pyogenes,
Yeah.
not staph,
Right.
but
Strep.
something that was pretty serious. Nearly lost my leg, some doctors said.
That is absolutely terrifying.
Yes, and I was out of sport pretty long time. But yes,
How
now
did
I'm
you
back.
deal with that? Like how did you deal with being like off the mat for a long time?
Most of the time it's pretty hard because the mats are my happy place and are kind of like the place where I can forget about everything else. And if I have to stay home, it's pretty hard. But normally I just go to the gym anyway and watch the other people train. So I guess that's what I do most of the time if I have to do a break.
What's your headspace like when you go to the gym? I really have struggled with that. Like when I'm injured, I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. It'll make me sad that I can't train. So, like, where is your head at when you go to the gym and you can't train and you're on the side?
I feel that. I do have that too, that I'm sad. But on the other hand, I know I can learn by watching. And personally, I need to keep in touch with the people. So my normal everyday life is all around going to training. And if I don't go, I'm just staying at home alone. I mean, I can do other stuff, but to keep in touch with the people is really important and is higher up than being said that I cannot train. And I do try to do some stuff I can do, like physio or whatever, sitting on the side and doing kind of stretching or some strength and conditioning stuff and watching the guys rolling and try to be there as soon as possible again on the mats too.
Yeah. That I feel like that's difficult with like an infection that you need to stay off the mat from. But in general, I think I get where you're coming from with that.
Yes, the infection was in my body, so I could not infect anybody else. So
Yeah, oh, that's
I
true.
was
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah, that's true. What I mean, one of the things that I feel always compelled to ask about is, you know, I feel like so many women have a completely different experience of jujitsu or coming up in jujitsu than I did as like a former wrestler and rather large male human. Like, is there any like advice you have for women who want to step on the mat and may be nervous about it, or younger white belts that you're like, hey, I wish that I knew this as a white belt or a blue belt or something?
Well, I would say just dare to say no to any role. I started in a gym and was even lighter than now, about 60 kilo. And my trainer always said to the new guys they should row with me to see how they work with women. But they were normally 20 kilos heavier or more and white belts. And I should have said more often, no, I don't want to. That doesn't make sense for me. And I guess that's kind of advice I would give to women who want to start. Just say no. It's okay. You don't have to row with everybody. Even if they ask you and even if they're nice, but when you weigh about 60 kilo and the guy is about 100 kilo, it doesn't make sense. Unless you know each other and row technically or drill or whatever, then sure you can train together. But if you don't know the guys, don't do it. Just don't.
I know this is going to sound like a weird question, but I think it's helpful. How do you say no to somebody who is, bigger or an upper belt and you're like, hey, I don't want to do this? But like for somebody who doesn't have an understanding of like how to say no, what have you learned is like a good way to say no to somebody who wants to roll with you?
Well, I'm struggling with this still, I guess, in some moments. But if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, you want to roll?" Just say, "No, sorry, I don't want to."
And you think it's okay to just leave it as I don't want to?
Yes. In some cases, perhaps you can explain, but you don't have to explain yourself. It's okay just to say no. Um, in some cases, I say, look, you're just like 120 kilos, and I saw you going like crazy, and I'm lighter, I'm older, and I'm tired, so I don't want to go that hard. It does not make sense. Next time, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, just so we're clear, I actually completely agree that you don't need more than no. Just, I think sometimes, like at least when I'm teaching and I remind people of this, it doesn't sound or land the same coming from 100 kilo former wrestler than it does from a 70 kilo, woman black belt. So I just wanted you to have the opportunity to like say, yeah, here's exactly how I say it. You said earlier that I feel like I want to ask you about, you said like jujitsu keeps getting you through tough times. In what way does jujitsu get you through those tough times?
Well, in so many ways. I think, first of all, martial arts is part of my life, more than half of my life, 25 years or what. And it always gave me kind of structure, even if when I was studying and having not like a 9 to 5 job or whatever, then there is the structure, then it's training. I go there and I don't question it. I get my ass on the mat, just be there. And as I said, I mean, it's, I guess, a physical reaction. If you train hard, you have hormones that make you happy. That's a big effect. And the people. I met people which I have on the mats, and those are long-lasting relationships, even if you don't talk to each other each day or whatever, but you have a kind of, how to say, just have to think about the English words. Net. Can you say that in English? Net?
Like a network. Yeah.
Yes.
Like a
You do
network, a
have,
community of people.
yes.
Yeah.
So that you can feel a part of and not alone. And you can ask people for help in different aspects. And because of sport gets them together, you normally have a bunch of different people and a bunch of different advices or people who can try to help you.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable, and I feel like I bounced around from a couple gyms, and it was difficult for me initially to find that community in the gym. And I once I found a gym that kind of like suited me, which is where I am now in Berlin. Like I feel like I found a community at the gym, and I don't think that that was obvious to me for the first 30 plus years of my martial arts career. I think I was just not in the right kinds of locations for myself. I think that's a very interesting thing for people to understand is that there will be a gym that matches your vibe, your community, and you just have to
Yes.
find it.
And it's okay to change teams. You don't have to stay in a gym when you're not happy there. I don't know, but did you change teams in Berlin or did you change teams because you moved cities?
I when I lived in New York, I was at Tiger Schulman's, which was a martial arts school, and I ended up getting in some like arguments with some of the head instructors about how much they were willing to teach. Back when I trained there, I don't think it's this way anymore, but back when I trained there, they were like, "Oh, we're only going to show you so much," and they kind of held back some of that, which is sort of that old, you know, like
Okay.
come to the master mentality. And I ended up leaving and switching to Marcelo Garcia, which obviously is a completely different style, not just MMA, but also like different level of jujitsu. So I switched teams because I wasn't getting the kind of support or vibe that I needed. And most of the other changes I made were because I moved. But that one was one where I moved teams because I did not like the way that I was and some of the other students who left also were being treated with knowledge.
Yeah, get that.
Yeah, I wish more people understood that it is okay to change teams or to change gyms, and it's not a negative. It's like you need to feel one of the things that I think is really important that I don't think is commonly understood is that in order to learn, you kind of need to feel safe. And in something that you are sort of unsure about your level of safety when you're first getting into it, it's hard to know whether or not you feel safe. So it's hard to retain information. And you feel more safe in a place where you feel more community oriented and you feel more supported and you feel like people are talking to you in a healthy way and all that other good stuff. And you'll learn better because you'll enjoy it more and you'll have more fun. And I am 100% sure that was not explained to me at any point early in my martial arts career. And I wish it was.
Yes. Yes, that's one point. And I think another point is for me, I need to train in different places to learn more because it's hard when you're getting better and better and more experienced and in your team you're, I mean, I'm not the top of the team, but it's hard to get training partners experience level and your weight class and women or whatever. So at some point I had the feeling I don't need to leave my team, but I need to go to other places to train too,
Yeah.
just to get in more different training partners, skill levels, weight classes, whatever.
And styles.
So, and styles, yes,
Yeah.
sure. If you know the people on the mats,
Yeah.
it's easier.
Yeah.
So I just started to go more to open mats and train with some black belts around. Yeah, just to get more infos, more techniques to evolve more.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about martial arts too, is that you can just go to another, like jujitsu specifically, you can just go to an open mat almost anywhere, and you're like, "Hi, I kind of know what I'm doing. Please train with me and don't hurt me." And then
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Cool, let's do that."
Yes. Yeah. And that's great because it even works all around the world, I guess. So traveling and training is great because you get connected with the people.
Yeah, yeah. That's how a lot of my light world travels in my life started, was because I traveled, I did some jujitsu, and then I was like, I can do this everywhere. And then I started making friends everywhere, and ended up how I met my wife was traveling and doing jujitsu. We met sort of on the mats, and so I feel very lucky and fortunate that the jujitsu world, jujitsu community gave me that kind of opportunity. So one of the other things I want to talk to you about is your 9 to 5. Like your day job is social work,
Yes.
which I feel like probably a lot of people would think to be somewhat counterintuitive. Like, oh, you like fighting and you like social work. Like, how did you get into being a social worker?
Well, that was not on purpose. It just happened to me, but it actually had to do with martial arts because I started working with young adults, with youth people, and just went into it's hard to say in English, center for youth,
Yeah, youth
and just
center.
youth center,
Yeah.
and just did sports with them. And so if you have training, you get a connection with them and start to speak with them, and over the connection you can work with them because it's needful not just to be there and say advices to them how they should react, how they whatever do. So yeah, it was kind of like it came out of martial arts.
And you
So and then
decided to work with kids? Like that was your starting point, was like, oh, I really like working with kids and young adults?
yes, because I think it's a part of your life where you need ideas, and if you meet the right people or hear the right sentence, it could change your life. It's like a starting point where you decide which way to go. And I really like to work with young kids who are, that's hard to say in English, let me think, which are criminal,
Yeah.
which perhaps
Like at risk?
at risk, yeah, do
Yeah.
drugs or are violent in the streets or whatever. And I think that's a good point to train with them martial arts because they can feel themselves, they can deal with frustration, they see that it's good not to do drugs because you can't fight if you're doing drugs. You have to be disciplined, you have to respect the other people, you have to, I don't know, show up and work for your goals. There's so many things you can see or do in martial arts and need in your real life. So I think the connection is really great. Yeah, I think perhaps it's because BJJ or martial arts in general gave me so much when I was young. I think it's great to show this opportunity to other guys. Yes.
Is it because of jujitsu that you feel comfortable working with, or martial arts, maybe even in general, that you feel comfortable working with like at risk or like potentially violent children? Like, do you feel safer? Like you can protect yourself and more comfortable there, or does that not factor into it at all?
I think it does. I think it's there are 2 points. I grew up in not as in an environment where there was violence,
Yeah.
so I'm used to it kind of. And now I know if they really want to go against me, I can defend myself. So that's easy. But I think that's for me as a person, I'm much calmer since I'm doing martial arts and BJJ because I know I could defend myself, but I don't want that situation.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's then you start to be more at peace. I don't know how to say, and that
Yeah.
transforms to the other person.
Yeah, like the calm energy that you can
Yes.
show. Yeah, no, I get that. Have you ever had to defend yourself from like kids acting out, or is that not real?
Not really, but I had some issues at work. Actually, I did training for non-violence. I don't know how to say otherwise. So, and we just wanted to make a circle with the chairs to sit down and talk. And it ended up like one girl with the chair coming up to me. And I was like, I think this would have consequences you cannot oversee, perhaps. And she was like, slowly putting the chair down, but that was the most violent situation.
You know what's this is kind of funny? I was one of the other interviews I did was with a guy who is a social worker, and he also had a child come at him with a chair and had to talk him down. And so I is like having a child come at you with a chair a universal social worker experience? That's funny. Is there anything that you do like like I know one of the challenges when I was a kid and I was acting out and I was dealing with martial arts was I never really felt seen or I never felt heard. And then I would get to take out all my aggression when I would do martial arts. Absent that ability, is there something that you do or can do to help these kids feel seen or feel heard before it gets to the violence part?
That depends on the setting in which you get to know them, but sure, you just have to let them speak and listen to them. I guess that's most the biggest part you can do to take them serious and not to think that you already know what they want to talk about, what they want to say. I guess most time in school or whatever, everybody feels like they already do know what these kids want to say or want to do or what's their problem. But obviously, it's not the fact. So just listen.
Is there any particular like set of behaviors that you're looking for when you see these kids? Like, is there anything that like jumps out at you where you're like, oh, I recognize that this is going to be a problem, and then you know how to address it?
You mean when I see behavior
Yeah, when
with
you're
the
just
kids?
dealing with the kids, yeah.
It's hard to say. No, it could be quite different. Just depends on the kiddos.
How do you teach kids what violence is? Because I feel like most people, the average person, doesn't understand violence in general, whether it's like physical violence or emotional violence or like any of these things. And you're talking to kids who are at risk and you're saying like, okay, we're going to try to change the cycle or curb the cycle of violence. But like, how do you teach kids what violence is when the average person doesn't even understand it?
That's funny because I think kids do have a better understanding of it than adults sometimes. And I think it's quite easy if you just say violence starts at that point if one of the persons does not want whatever is happening. It's just like if you're doing martial arts and you're fighting each other, then both people say yes, yes, and they fight. And if one of them says yes and the other does not say yes, it's violence. So that's that easy. And even if it's about joking or I don't know, just saying stuff to the other person, if one think it's funny and the other does not think it's funny, then it's violence.
Do you then go on to teach like tools for dealing with that kind of violence?
I did, not at the moment, but I think it's hard. You just need time to do that. The most said sentence in the training always was, it's an invitation. If somebody is violent in your direction, you don't have to react the same. You can, but you don't have to. It's an invitation, and you can say, no, I don't want to. Leave the room or whatever, go to your teacher. But that is much more easy said than done, obviously.
Yeah.
So it takes a month of training just, and you need to go into biography work to see at which points the kids are triggered from which sentences and to understand that and to unravel and see what's behind it. It's not just like, okay, it's an invitation, I don't want to take it now. That would be nice, but it doesn't work like that. So it's more like that, but yes, in the end, it comes down to this. If a person tries to be aggressive in your direction, you just can say, no, I'm out of here. I'm leaving.
I feel like that's definitely something adults could probably do better as well.
Sure.
I don't think I got taught the definition of violence for until I was like well into my 20s. Like even in martial arts, it was just like violence was always physical. And like I don't think anyone explained to me that it didn't have to be physical until like my late 20s, which is unfortunate, but I think probably a
Yes.
reality for most.
Yes, and often I think it's mixed up with aggression. Aggression seems to be negative, but it don't has to be. Aggression in itself is just a feeling and could be kind of a motor, just to get going, but you have to direct it and give it a form which makes sense and works in society.
That actually ties in really well to the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was you are really interested in philosophy. And
Yes.
like one of the things that you had said to me off camera was that you're into dialectic philosophy. So basically like argument is the form of philosophy, like argument and counter argument. Like how did you get into philosophy? Was that where did that start for you?
Well, that started in school. I guess I was always a person who thought a lot about stuff. I don't know, like feels like it always has been that way. And I did philosophy in school and then decided to study it afterwards because I had no better idea what else to do. That's, yes,
So
that was the starting point.
but the thing that's really interesting about the type of philosophy that you study is that or studied was that it sort of says that like objectivity is the requirement, like there is no objective single truth and that you actually have to talk about things in order to come up with
Yes.
any level of truth. Like how do you apply that for yourself in everyday life?
Well, I guess it's kind of like you can get closest to objectivity if you say who is looking at which part and is talking about it. So you have to say from which point of view do you watch this stuff and talk about. You cannot, you're a part of the system. You're not watching it like God from above and have nothing to do with it. You have impact on the things you're talking about. You're changing the world if you're talking about it. So I think in everyday life, it's like I got a better understanding that every person has its own truth and believes its own truth. And that's fine because there is no one truth which we all should believe. But that explains the problems we have with other people.
It
And that
sounds like you
should,
tie this back to your social work.
sure. I mean, yes, the way I think about the world is the way I think about people and socializing.
How do you sort of go about this idea of like diverse discourse? How do you apply that for yourself in everyday life? Do you just talk to a lot? Do you just try to get everyone's opinions? The reason I'm asking is because I was trying to do a little research on this to like ask you interesting questions. And the thing that I kept coming back to is like if diverse discourse is everyone talking about things to find the closest thing to truth, you're going to have to wade through a lot of really dumb opinions. So, like, how do you work through that for yourself?
I guess what I'm making out of it is that I often know that I cannot come close to the truth because I don't have time to get all the informations and opinions from all people. So it's more or less more like I know that I don't know anything, but I keep to try to gather informations and I try not to have an opinion which is set, but which is evolving, kind of like. And I can say, okay, for now, from this point of view, at this time, in my head, I think this. But perhaps 10 minutes later, if I get other more information, then it's different. And that's okay. I don't have to be fixed to one opinion. And I think that would be good for many people to be more open-minded and to let go of opinions. Sometimes it's okay to have fixed opinions. You need that in everyday life. You couldn't live your life without that. But if you really think about stuff, you should be able to see, okay, from that point of view, it's right, and from that point of view, the opposite is right too. And that's okay. I don't have to decide myself between the 2 points.
I think about it, if I understand what you're saying correctly, I think about it with the phrase strong opinions weakly held. I have strong opinions and I will say them, but if somebody's like, here's new information that makes your opinion make not as much sense, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I can go with that. I'll buy that more.
Yes. And I guess it's like an invitation to talk more about opinions. You don't need to held your opinions and have them forever. It's more interesting to get into discussion and talk about stuff, and perhaps everyone learns something new. Or you stay where you are, that's okay too, but just get connected.
I try to do the talking thing. The other thing that I was thinking about, well, like having to wade through dumb opinions, was I wasn't just talking about other people. I was actually also talking about myself. Because if I don't know something about a topic and I'm like, oh, I should learn about this. And then I'm like, oh, I think I understand it. And then I read something and I was like, oh, no, I didn't. That was dumb. I should not have thought that I understood it so quickly. I feel like I'm also wading through my own dumb opinions while I'm trying to better understand something, which makes finding objective truth or maintaining some level of searching for that difficult.
But I think it's okay. I guess I'm the same as you. But then I just, if somebody talks to me about a topic, political stuff or whatever, then sometimes I just say, I don't have an opinion. There's so much to know, and my life is, I don't have time to gather all the information. Perhaps this is right, perhaps this is right. I can't decide, and that's okay because I don't take my time to get into it too much. But then I don't have to say this is right or this is right or whatever. And I feel like some people just have the feeling they need to decide for one side and say what's right or what's wrong. And for me, sometimes I just cannot say what's good or bad. And I don't need to because I don't know enough about it. So I just shut my mouth.
That is advice that I think more people could stand to listen to. Have any of these things, these like philosophical ideas, like really influenced the way you handle social work or the way you approach jujitsu?
Perhaps in that sense that I try to be open-minded and not to see one thing best. So for Jiu-Jitsu, perhaps it's like there's not one best armbar or whatever. There are so many details, and for somebody it works like this better, and for another person in another way. So just to be open and not like fixed.
Has it worked the other way? Has like jujitsu changed the way you think about philosophy or something like that?
No, I guess not.
I don't know. I never really studied philosophy, so I didn't really have anything to compare it against. Is there any sort of piece of advice that you wish everyone knew? Like could be about anything, about life, about jujitsu, just anything that you wish everyone knew.
No, but I think that depends on, I don't want to put myself in a position to know about other people what's good for them.
I don't think it's necessarily like you would know what's good for other people. I think it's more from a perspective of, as somebody who works with kids, as somebody who studied philosophy, as somebody who's done martial arts for 25 years, as somebody who's, achieved a significant thing in the world of jujitsu, which is receiving your black belt. Like, was there anything that you're like, man, I think my experience has taught me this, and I think it would be useful if other people understood whatever this thing is as well.
Perhaps it could be broken down to believe in yourself and believe what you're feeling about a situation as you perhaps said, you need to train in a safe environment, and nobody told you that. But I guess you, inside yourself, you know and you feel that you need a safe environment to develop. Perhaps that's one advice, just to listen to your feelings and to believe that you yourself know what's best for you.
I think that's great. I think that's really good advice. You seem very unsure of it, but it sounds like that's excellent advice from my perspective. Is there anything that you're particularly excited for about the future?
Do you mean what I'm going to do in the near future?
Yeah,
Whatever.
whatever.
I'm
Just
I'm
something
going
that you're
to
excited
travel
about.
to Malaysia.
Ah, nice. What brings you to Malaysia?
I don't know. We wanted to go somewhere where it's warm and where we could train, and so looked where flights go and decided to go there. Yeah,
Nice.
that's something I'm really looking forward. Yes,
Just traveling in general or specifically to Malaysia?
just traveling in general.
Is there anything about traveling that's like what do you enjoy about traveling? What is it for you about traveling?
I guess I can connect it to the philosophy theme again, because I like to get new informations and new perspectives, and just to make my vision of the world complete or whole, something like that. And to get to know people and to see the differences and the similarities. I like that, because even if it's really different in other countries, you have similarities, not only in sports, but yes, I don't know, non-verbal communication or whatever. Smiling works everywhere.
Yeah. I really like that about traveling is when I travel I always end up having a million conversations with random people. You know, it's harder obviously in countries where you don't speak the language, but I find that like when I get on the mat, I can always find somebody who speaks English and they're more inclined to like try harder to connect after you've rolled with them and found that you at least speak the same physical language and stuff like that. Cool. Is there anything that you want to promote? Anything that you want to make sure everyone knows about? Like any teaching, seminars, anything like that?
We're just doing a new gym. Perhaps that's what I want to promote, Kuzushi BJJ in Dienstlaken. Friends
Okay.
of mine are just starting it, and just I guess about we had 3 weeks time and not much money, but uh, we did it and we train there now. So everyone's welcome there to train with us. That would be nice to promote.
Nice. I will make sure that I'll get that information from you and put it in the show notes so that anyone who is anywhere near Dienstlagen can come find you.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks so much for your time today, Alex. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about working with at-risk children or would like to talk about philosophy or jiu-jitsu, message Alex directly on Instagram. If you find yourself near Dienstlaken in Nordrhein-Westfalen, Germany, please reach out to Alex if you want to train with her. You can find her contact information and relevant websites in the show notes. As always, thank you for your time and attention.